A lot of wetland and wildlife and forestry management that we do is the result of careful observation and decades of data collection, right? That's reflected in our designs of our projects, but it's not always. Sometimes it flies in the face of convention, right? And tradition. Is it a wildlife track or is it an ecology track? I mean, what is the
philosophy?
Interesting.
Basically, so I've run into the problem of I'm self-educating myself in the areas within wildlife ecology and agriculture and combining the two too quickly for me to really feel entertained at school, I guess you could say. Like, I'm going to lose a lot of basic understandings of things with that, like with leaving wildlife ecology track, which is going to be a downside, but I just never really felt satisfied doing it because part of it was I was just educating myself a lot faster, I felt. And then part of it was also, I didn't like learning all the stuff and then never actually applying it and doing something with it. So I felt very, I guess for lack of better ways of saying it, like useless.
Right.
It didn't feel important to me. And it didn't feel like what I was doing was important because I wasn't applying it and working with it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if that's the way that I'm going to feel about school, whether I'm going for wildlife ecology or agriculture, what's something that I can do that there's no other way of doing it other, like I'm doing it and applying it. So I was like, well, learning how to write and communicate through writing very effectively is going to be very helpful in my career, no matter what, especially with podcasting, right?
Yeah.
So learning how to do that very effectively is going to be very crucial.
Yeah.
And then a lot of like potential employers that I've talked to through the podcast have kind of said the same thing to me of like, no matter what your degree is, it doesn't really tell me what you know, like I'm still going to treat you like you don't really know much and I'm going to have to teach you everything. So my attitude was just like, well, then why the heck am I going for wildlife ecology then? If I know that I can get some form of employment through through my connections with the podcast and stuff. So who knows, maybe you'll play a role in that eventually.
Well, it's an interesting concept because, what I've learned in interviewing and hiring a lot of younger people that are, within a few years finishing a degree, particularly if they come out of an ecology or a biology type field, those communication skills are not there, but particularly the writing side, right? It seems like something's been lost along the way, even at the collegiate level, because I mean, when I was in school,
that was like a big piece of it.
Well, I wouldn't say it was a big piece. I mean, I was a biology major, right? But it was still like, okay, you need to take a public speaking course. You need to keep your English credits up high. You need to learn how to communicate, right?
Yeah.
You can have all the technical knowledge that you can imagine. If you can't convey it well to others in whatever format it is, you're gonna struggle, right?
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting idea to be able to think about honing in your collegiate experience on the communication side, right? And then building the technical and biological knowledge as you go, right?
Yeah.
For sure. But I share your, the reality was for me, I graduated college in '96. I mean, it was most people that were going into the wildlife business at that time only needed a bachelor's degree, right? That 4-year degree, which, for me, I did in 5, right? But at the end of the day, nowadays, most people that work particularly for agencies as biologists have at least a master's degree, and it's expensive, right? You're pursuing that. But my point is that I wanted, just like you, I wanted to get out and get my hands on and apply the knowledge I had learned from school doing something, right? And that was the path I took as well.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just texting Mom and Heather that we were recording.
Yeah.
I don't
want
usually,
them walking in.
I'm not usually like looking at my phone. Right. No, I would agree. It's just sometimes I feel like when I describe that to people, like I don't want to come across as arrogant, know, and being like, oh, well, I don't need school. Like I'm not saying that. There's a lot of value that I could have continuing down the wildlife track, but I'm just going to sit there for the next 3 years being like knowing that I am doing stuff, like I can recognize that I am doing something that is progressing myself, um, but I'm still not feeling that. And I know that there's a way that I can do it to feel like I am progressing.
Right.
And, lacrosse doesn't have, they have a biology program, but I don't really want to go for biology. I'm sorry.
Oh, hey,
I want to go for
you need to
ecology.
apologize.
Like I want to go for, if I were to go for something like that, I would go for ecology. They don't offer anything with that. And I'm like living here on the farm and going to school and still being able to work here on the farm. You could say it would be more distracting from my education and stuff, but I think it'll really help me because I'll be able to still work physically, feel like I'm physically active. I'm progressing stuff on the farm. Because when I was up at Tech, I would call people down here and I'd hear about all the work that needs to be done. And I just feel useless because I'm like, what am I doing up here? I finished all my homework 3 hours ago and I've just been hanging out doing nothing when I could be helping you guys.
Yeah.
So now I'll be able to actually help them out, and then I'll worry about that stuff less than focus on my school and I'm doing it better.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the whole time it's like I would wake up thinking about the farm and I would go to sleep thinking about the farm. And it's like, so what am I doing 6.5 hours, 7 hours away?
Yeah. This is your center. And that's important. It's rare, honestly, for someone of your age to have that figured out, have that center developed in your life already.
Yeah.
It's unique.
It is. And a lot of people have said to me, well, the farm's still going to be there in 4 years. I'm like, I get that.
Yeah.
Especially if this was like a 10-year-old, like an older operation that had been going for a while. But this is very new, and there is a lot of work that needs to get done.
Well,
here.
I can see your passion for it.
Yeah.
And this is a classroom in and of itself, right? I mean, as long as you are thinking of it that way and you're learning, you're documenting, recording what you're doing, and you're retrospectively looking back at those things, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, you can think of it as a science experiment if you want to, but I mean, it's really a great classroom for you to really, engage into.
I definitely see it that way. And I don't remember the exact quote, but I was telling somebody this the other day, like Elda Leopold said that science is where like curiosity and workmanship like cross.
Yeah.
Meaning you have a question, you want it answered, but then you like apply it, you use it.
Right.
And I'm not saying that isn't what science is right now, but it's just I could never be a researcher where that's all I'm doing is asking questions and getting them answered, and mostly just asking questions that I can get funding for. It's like I want to be doing stuff that is. It's not to say that stuff isn't meaningful, but I'm a little selfish and I want to do something where I can look back at it at the end of the day and be like, okay, I did that. That was cool. I see the success from it.
Right.
Absolutely. So
I get it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, anyway, Clayton Frazer from Native Range Ecological. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the farm
it's a
here
beautiful
today.
drive.
Beautiful drive. It was 3 hours, though.
It was. The last hour, though, it's really spectacular when you get off the beaten path. I love to come onto the driftless as often as I can. I don't get out here as much as I'd like, but it's beautiful.
You're welcome here anytime.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you. This is phenomenal. Great spot.
No, it's super cool, and I wish we could have taken a longer walk, but
it's not bad. We'll be back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We saw a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's an awesome place, man. No doubt about it. This is a special part of the world.
It is.
So,
and it was super cool going from Washington to over here too, because Washington, super cool place, very awesome, has very unique pieces to it. But this is just a hugely different place.
Oh yeah.
From like hunting to the actual like productivity of the land and all that.
Right.
And the people infrastructure around it too.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking earlier about a little bit, the networking that happens over here. There's a misconception that people are really independent. People are independent here, but they're also really into take care of their neighbors.
Oh yeah,
which is interesting. I mean, I think that a lot of agricultural communities have lost that sense of community at large, but this is a part of the state, part of the world that really it's still intact. There's a heritage concept to land management. There's a good land ethic, and there's a want and a need to share it with others, particularly your neighbors out here. So there really is an interesting community that exists here. That's rare to other parts of the world, and definitely to Wisconsin.
It's definitely still a struggle to keep it around, though. Like the heritage mentality and the small scale agriculture that you're talking about is really what I've focused a lot of when I talk about agriculture on the podcast, that's what I've really started to focus on. And it's I had like Austin Frerick on, who's basically studied that his whole life, and he kind of said that about the driftless area of Wisconsin too. Is he was talking it up pretty big as to what it was, and my dad and I, because my dad was there recording that one with me too, we kind of had to stop and be like, okay, but we are still seeing that consolidation of agriculture here in this area. Like it's still happening.
Yep.
And it's still a battle to keep the small scale agriculture around. The literal topography of this location has slowed it down significantly. It's just harder to do scalable agriculture here, but it's still a battle. We still are working on it. We're still fighting to keep small scale agriculture and around. But it's literally the farmer I'm working for right now is an organic dairy, milking 60 head, around 60 head at the end of every month, and he's raising a family of 5 off of it, with that being his sole source of income. Like, that's super cool. You don't see that anywhere else in Wisconsin anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's uncommon. And that's still rare for even here, but that's a very impressive thing for him to do. Yeah.
No doubt. I mean, I've spent a good part of my career thinking about that idea of, this industrialized large scale agriculture and what we're doing to our soils and our water and our wildlife. And we slowly undo it, and we slowly think about restoration. It takes time.
Oh, yeah.
But it can be a daunting thing. It can be overwhelming and frustrating when you think about, are we moving the needle in the right direction fast enough and at the right scale to really make an impact here? That's a tough one. It is a philosophical question to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we doing the right thing, and are we doing it fast enough and scalable enough?
Yeah.
That people can replicate it and make an impact on the landscape. That's what I think about.
Yeah. And then you also enter into the whole like influencer side of it too, that I am more and more just coming to struggles with within like the homestead community and the regen ag community. Is there's a lot of knacking at conventional farmers,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, they're not necessarily blaming the farmers, but the problem is really just the fact that there is it's a system run by big businesses, not the land. In my head, I came up with a pretty good way of consolidating it down to 2 sentences the other day, but I've forgotten it. But it's essentially just the fact that, farmers aren't being run by dictating, like the land dictating what they do in their practices. Right. It is large businesses that are just trying to suck as much out of the farmers, which then makes the farmers have to suck as much out of the land as they can.
Right.
And that's the problem. And who's the solution to that? It's the consumers. The consumers are the solution to that. It's not the government.
Right.
It's not any sort of legislation. It's not the farmers. It's the consumers. The consumers need to make that move through their dollar and through the way that they spend to actually go out and buy from local farmers, buy from farmers markets, even if it's just like, a few vegetables and herbs here and there weekly, like whatever you can do, go out and do it. And eventually it'll, like, that's what's going to move the needle in terms of big societal switches. And it's not like, I'm using this platform to say that to people, right? Not many people, very few people, but the influencer side of things, of showing people, this very dark message, I guess you could say, about it, with offering no realistic solution, like just describing the problem. Like, people think that describing the problem is actually helping to create a solution, because they're like, oh, I'm just making people aware. It's like,
right.
You do have to make people aware, but you also have to provide them with some sort of actionable solutions. That's why I don't hate these documentaries that are coming out describing what's happening with our system. Like, I do want people to be made aware, but you have to provide solutions for them.
Right.
You can't just tell them what's wrong.
Yeah. Well, and there is a lot of dystopian messaging out there that I think people, listen to it to a degree and then turn it off and tune it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of just a human nature. We want to try to have positive reinforcement, and thinking about good things is better than thinking about bad things.
That's fair. Yeah.
But it's not easy. I mean, and it is important for people to understand that they're voting when they're buying their food.
Mm-hmm.
You're voting with every dollar you spend, whether it's in the grocery store or the farmer's market, right? And it's important. And I wholeheartedly agree that uh, innovation does not come from agencies. That's not what they're
Yeah.
for, particularly government agencies. They are following. They
Mm-hmm.
are not going to lead. That's not what they are set out to do. Quite
Yeah.
honestly, it's part of the reason I left agency work. I thought I was going to start out there and have a good
Like
long
an
career in
impact.
it
Yeah.
and make an impact. And I realized, and again, it was just my personal one man's experience, right? But I mean, science is under attack right now. And,
I think that's what
you
you
know,
basically said to me, like,
yeah,
whenever I called you like a year ago asking you for career advice, which is kind of a funny story as to how that happened. But
yeah,
I think that's pretty much what you said to me with agencies. You were like, go and work there for a year with the DNR,
or two
feel
or
it, feel it
three.
out. Yeah, feel it
Yeah,
out for yourself.
yeah.
But
But
this was my
leave
experience,
before you
and
get, indoctrinated and
mhm.
institutionalized and overly comfortable and complacent. And, again, it's such an easy thing to relax into that culture of the way things have always been done. And that's because, it's just easier,
Yeah, and
you know?
I've through the podcast met really cool people that are coming out with cool programs and initiatives through Wisconsin DNR in particular.
Yeah.
Like Mary Anderson, I was talking about earlier, like her whole program, which she didn't start, she just took it over, of, trying to graze on, like, get privately owned livestock from farmers onto public state land to keep the grasslands going to solve budget problems, but then also like provide some financial gain for the local farmers and all that. And huge, cool things happening with that. Like Josh Spiegel, I've talked to on the podcast once a very long time ago, but I've kept in contact with him. He's the northern elk herd biologist. He's really solid guy that works for the DNR. Buzz Sorge, who's a retired guy, did some really cool stuff with like watershed management and getting like farmer led groups out into the areas of Wisconsin to basically what I was describing to you earlier about that watershed group that I'm going to that meeting tonight,
Mm-hmm.
of getting farmers to start to communicate and network with each other with stuff is just those sorts of programs are super cool. So I think there are cool things coming out of the DNR, but I would 100% agree. It's like you kind of just have to weigh it for yourself of if you're the kind of person that's going to be able to work that system in a way to allow for those cool things to happen, or if it would just be better if you went down like a private sector and you could do your own.
It's so much easier whether you're working for county government or a municipality or a state agency. It's so much easier just to go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that innovation and creativity are really not rewarded the way that they used to be.
Yeah.
They really want people to be lockstep and talk the talk that the agency is promoting, whatever it is, on any flavor, on any topic, right? And if you step out of that and you do something that is unconventional and it doesn't work out precisely the way everyone expects it to, you're kind of on the chopping block.
Yeah.
You're under a high degree of scrutiny for that. I see that a lot. So I work as a restoration ecologist as a consultant, right? And we promulgate a lot of water permits in the state right now. And I see it a lot. There's a lot of challenges right now. A lot of young people are moving through the system that don't have a lot of big breadth of experience to draw from when they're making decisions. But it's also just this idea that, okay, we really don't want to stamp a permit for anything that's unconventional or, or a traditional thought process
Not
about
proven.
that where we move through something that's, it may not be new science, but it's new to this community, this culture, this part of the state, this watershed, whatever it is, hasn't been done here much before. And the department will say, well, why hasn't it been done? And you can go, well, particularly because of this exact situation. You're questioning its efficacy primarily because it hasn't been done.
Yeah.
Right? Like on its face value, you're just saying this isn't going to work mainly because no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
Right? That idea is toxic and it's problematic. And what we're trying to do in the private sector is very much the opposite. We are innovating. We are doing things on the edge of cutting edge, of new things that are that they're not necessarily new conceptually, but
No,
they're
but
new
like,
to the region or to the practice or to the
mhm,
practitioner or to the agencies that we're working in. In the upper Midwest, there are things that we're doing that are really antiquated, that are just not part of cutting edge stuff. There's
mhm,
definitely some things we're doing, particularly in wildlife, that are really amazing and cutting edge, right? But in water resources, we're really, really stuck in the mud right now. And it's problematic to get permits for projects in water that are a little bit outside the box. And these people don't, they're very
mhm.
cautious about putting their name onto it and stamping a permit if it's not something that's already been done 1,000 times and it's super proven and
Yeah.
and we can look at the results and quantify the data. it, Not everything works that way, right? And it's just I think that's part of the challenge right now in the agencies with the DNR is that people are not rewarded for new innovative concepts and ideas,
Mhm.
and in fact they are actually probably
Scrutinized and
chastised
yeah.
and overly scrutinized if something doesn't go right or well, and it
Yeah.
makes them gun shy about trying to innovate. Right? It's a big problem,
And that
honestly, right
and
now.
that makes sense. Do you have examples
In
that
water, yeah. I mean, what we're doing
yeah.
right now with non-lethal beaver management and beaver
Mhm.
coexistence work and replicating what beavers do hydrologically in watersheds and landscapes, this is not new stuff at all. This is 40 or 50-year-old ideas that have been
Yeah.
done all over the country, all over the world for that matter, right?
Yeah.
But they are relatively new to the upper Midwest. And for that reason, people, have this immediate, reaction to it where it's like, oh, wait a minute. You sound heretical. You sound like, this is really, really out there. Well, no, it's not. It's been done a lot
Sure.
already, right? It's just that we don't have a permit right now for these types of devices that we're installing. For example,
Mhm.
pond levelers and culvert protection devices or beaver dam analogs, anything that goes in public water, there is no permit for this, and there won't be for a while. This is not something that just happens overnight. So we beg and borrow on other permits that we need to
Yeah.
use. It makes the process longer, more expensive, more arduous, more data driven, which of course drives cost up
Yep.
to the client,
Landowner,
the
yep.
landowner clients that we're working for. There's a lot of people that want to do a lot of good things, and if permits are required, that is a big stumbling block. The other one is just a cultural idea. And that's where there's overlap
Mhm.
between regenerative ag concepts and non-lethal beaver management concepts, or any kind of restoration, particularly that works on watershed scale stuff,
Yeah.
that's a little bit new, a little bit outside the box comparatively to what's been done traditionally, right? And that's true
Interesting.
not only just with beaver stuff, but a
Really
lot of
like
a lot of
any
wetland
yeah.
and wildlife and forestry management that we do is the result of careful observation and
Mhm.
decades of data collection, right? That's reflected in our designs of our projects, but it's not all it sometimes it flies in the face of convention,
Yeah.
right? And tradition. and
Mhm.
and and for that reason, it's not always looked at favorably, and it means that we have to push rope up a hill sometimes, really literally, to get
Yeah.
to get these
Do
things
you
permitted.
do you get a lot of calls like a lot of your beaver projects, are they, a farmer who's like, "Hey, I had a beaver come in. It's swamping out a lot of my cropland. I need you to fix this."
That's
Or
less
or is it
common.
or is it like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I kind of see the benefit that beavers can have, but I'm having trouble like managing my relationship
Yeah.
with them. Could you help me
100%.
out?"
It's
Is it more
everything.
about like people wanting you to just come in and take care of the problem or try to balance the problem?
Yeah, it's both. I think ultimately, number one, it's really important to look at any kind of a land management challenge through the eyes of the person who's managing that land, particularly if they are creating a living off of it, right?
Yes.
If this is their livelihood, number one, that's like, okay, I get it. If you have to go out and trap beaver to be able to access your field to plant it or
Mhm.
harvest it, that's your livelihood, man. I mean, you can't mess with that. But but that's a short term idea,
Yeah.
right? We you can keep trapping them out. They're going to keep coming in, but particularly in places like the Driftless where beaver have been here for 10,000 plus years, they're not going anywhere. You can
Yeah.
trap them out it might take them a year, but they're going to come back.
Right.
So if you want to be thinking about longer term solutions, and that's when farmers call and say, hey, look, you know what? The trapper no longer is trapping over here. I'm getting overrun. I can go out and pull dams out. I can shoot them. I can trap them if I have time to do that. But at the end of the day, they're
That's not where I want to put my
well, they're
energy as the
smart
farmer.
enough too, George, that they realize that's a short term deal.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, it kind of goes back to this philosophical idea of farming in general, is that, the people that are regenerative, that are thinking about land health and soil health, they are thinking long term. They have to. That's what they're thinking about, right? The short term annual cycles of agriculture, of conventional industrial agriculture, that's what's got us into the problem that we're in right now. Is the gains have to come quick and fast, and the yields have to be maximized. That's a problem from a sustainability standpoint for sure. But that idea carries over to the beaver world too.
Yeah, that's true for most like the habitat world.
Absolutely.
It's like, just I want short-term solutions and I want it now. And I totally get that. Like when the prairie that we were just at, like I'm totally understanding like it's going to take 4 or 5 years for that thing to come in to be like a prairie.
Right.
But man, it sure would be nice if it just happened now.
Right. And you get that.
Yeah.
But what about the rest of your family and the people that are hunting the land, the people that are part of your world here on this landscape? Are they buying into that idea? I think they will. But they have to see it. I think for the most part, most people are like, seeing is believing. I can read it, I can hear it, I can be told something. But if I see it, I experience it, it galvanizes it at that point in time. But you still have to have the patience to get through that first 3 or 4 or 5 years to see it come to fruition. And for a lot of people, they just, for whatever reason, don't have that capacity, and it's a problem.
And it makes total sense to me. Like it's hard to gain that mindset. I don't know why I have it, but I guess I do. And it's hard to even help people get that mindset, because I don't know what it is about me that allows for that. Are a lot of the farmers like, so they understand the long-term mindset towards beaver management?
To be honest with you, George, when we get calls on beaver stuff, it's uncommon that it's a farmer.
Really?
I will tell you that, I have met with a number of farmers in the last few years, particularly in the driftless, to be honest with you. Most of them are here in this region of the state. And they're kind of like, hey, you know what? I don't hate beavers. I identify what they do for the resource and that they're a keystone species. They may not use those terms, but they understand that these animals are providing habitat, and they're sequestering water, and they're holding nutrients on the landscape. They're sequestering carbon. They may not understand those terminologies and use those, but they get it conceptually. They understand it. They're observing it, right? But at the same time, they can't have them flooding out roads. Is
that the main problem?
Absolutely.
It's just like the flooding that happens when they dam
they're damming up creeks and they're flooding out. Quite honestly, most of the time, if they're flooding out fields, they're flooding out agricultural land that really shouldn't be in agriculture to begin with, right? That's a big challenge over here.
It shouldn't be, but it's also like, you might have a property where it's all bottom land, and that's it, and you have to make a living. Like,
well, there's a disconnection too. When you think about land heritage and legacy, people don't get it, but beavers were almost extirpated off this landscape before the state was even a state. Okay. We're talking like 1700s. We nearly trapped these animals into oblivion. And by the time that we got here and homesteaded most of this landscape in the 1800s, they were already gone. They were here on very, very low level, right? Pilot lights and just, hold out residual populations. But for the most part, there is no institutional memory these people's great grandparents might remember, or great great grandparents might remember. But if you're an adult now and you're farming the land, you don't have any perception. And people, and oftentimes the farmers will say, oh, well, beaver just moved in here, in the last 5 or 10 years. Sure. I get it. That's your perception because that's when you first saw them. My brother, let me tell you, they've been here for 10,000 plus years. And they're not going anywhere no matter what you do. Right? You can hold back you can do whatever you want. They're going to find their way back in here. So this is just one example. But at the end of the day, it's like, you look at these guys that are farming these bottomlands.
Mm-hmm.
In the driftless, you're either farming the tops or the bottoms, right?
Yeah, that's what
we're doing here.
If you're just farming the in between,
right. In between is tough, but at the end of the day,
it's a little scary. You're gonna have a lot of moments where you're like, oh, I don't know about this.
Right. But if you look at those bottomlands and you understand even just a little bit about fluvial geomorphology, you understand that.
I'm sorry, what was that word?
Fluvial geomorphology, the way water moved through the land and impacted rock and mineral and soil and created the waterways and the wetlands and the river systems that we have, right? That's just a big fancy word for basically the way water moves through the earth on geologic time scales.
Okay? You have some good stuff I can read about that? Or?
Oh, God, are you kidding me? There's so many books. But anyway, at the end of the day, these guys are cropping beaver meadows.
Yeah.
Beaver created these bottomlands and these big, wide, like fertile floodplains that exist in these valleys. That one animal created that entire situation and they're going in and they're going to crop it, right? And they can do that. You can tile it out. You can artificially drain it temporarily. I mean, it works for 10 or 20 years, then it has to be redone, And so you can definitely manipulate that landscape to produce annual crops off of it, no problem. But at some point in time, there's a tipping point where the tile starts to become dysfunctional. The beavers move back into it. It gets harder and harder to crop it. And so the typical reaction is to say, okay, our human minds, we need to find one singular reason why this is happening right now. And the beaver's the scapegoat, right?
Yeah.
The beaver's the animal they look at and they go, right there. That's it. I see those dams and those lodges over there. They weren't there a couple of years ago. Yeah. Well, and maybe they weren't, but they were here in the last 10,000 plus years, way before you got here.
Right.
And they're going to be here long after you're gone. Right. So you either learn to live with these animals or you trap them out. And I'm not anti-trapping. Believe me, as a biologist, I understand at my core, there are times it's a necessary tool, the same way we were talking earlier, George, about the use of herbicides or fire or mechanical use or grazing to control invasive plants. These are all tools, right?
Yep.
And using these devices that we're putting in are tools. Trapping is a tool too. And it has value. It has necessity to a degree. But no singular tool is globally applicable. There are no silver bullets, right? No. You have to have all these tools at your disposal.
Sometimes it's a combination of all.
100%. And that's the most successful people that you'll talk to. I'm sure you've already realized this, is that they don't have the tunnel vision of what the answer is. They're open to all these different ideas and concepts, and they want to put, their goal is to put more tools in the toolbox, not take any out because they have, I think, bad feelings about those tools.
When it comes to like the people that I've met through managing land, like people that I've met through the podcast that manage land, the ones that I really like compared to the ones that I don't like, it's they'll go out and do something. Like maybe we'll just pick an easy example, like go out and plant a food plot. And some of them might look at it and be like, okay, the deer are going to use it this way. They're going to access it from this direction. And they're going to eat these kinds of species at this time of year. And they'll have all these expectations and they'll be constantly looking and prying at it to see those things. And then they might see it once or twice and they're like, oh, boom, I was right. That happened.
What you're describing is bias.
Yeah. The ones that I like
dangerous.
is they go out and they plant that food plot. They're like, I had these expectations as to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But also I'm just going to take a step back and observe what happens and look at like, okay, I think they're going to access it this way and they're going to eat these species in the month of October and these species in November. But I'm just going to sit back and watch, you know, and all my past experiences are telling me that it's going to work this way, but this is a new location, a new spot. You know, I don't quite know. So it's like,
so buckle up, George. What you're describing is science, right? I mean, like this is, you can call it philosophy.
It's what science should be.
Well, it is what science is.
Yeah.
And you either choose to embrace science or you would choose to embrace pseudoscience or quasi-science. What you're talking about is going into a situation with a hypothesis, right? To use a scientific term, right? But having the flexibility to accept alternate outcomes, right? That's science. You can't, and that's at the heart of it. the scientific method, scientific process is kind of what we've gotten away from because it's so easy to have a bias, to walk in and say, okay, I may try this, but at the back of my mind, I already know it's not going to work. I'm just going to figure out ways to disprove this theory. Right. So, I mean, ultimately it's very, very difficult as for most people, right? You can train yourself to be a scientist, but you intrinsically have to be able to walk into something really open-minded and unbiased. And those are the most successful people that you're going to talk to. Sure.
And that's just what I've noticed. It's like a lot of the people that don't think about it that way, I honestly just don't have them on the podcast. I'm like, okay, I see it now. I see you're not really thinking about things that way.
You know, again, I would encourage you to keep a broad breadth of people coming in as guests, because that's what keeps things interesting, particularly for your listeners, right? Is I think, as long as they're open to like healthy debate and like respectful discourse, because that's really what it comes down to is like, hey, I respect your decisions. You know, I've got my perspective. I'll give you a great example of that, George. In the world that I work in with native plants and prairie restoration, there are so many different ways to slice the bread. There are so many perceptions that are formed by people's individual human experiences, right? You have to acknowledge that and respect it and say, look, hey, I get it. That worked great for you. This is what's working for me. There are definitely patterns. There are things that consistently do not work, right? And you'll pick up on those the more you do it. But to be able to walk in and say, you know what, like I'm right and you're wrong, that's not it, right? That's not going to get you where you need to go. And more than likely, you're going to have to end up eating crow at some point, anytime, right? In the future, because it's like, no, you can't be that polarized about it. You need to be really open-minded and listen to other people's ideas and experiences. I know what works for us. I also have a very different perspective. So, for example, people that are working in nonprofit worlds or working for organizations that are kind of grassroots and based, right? My perspective is that my clients are looking for a certain deliverable by a certain period of time. And if money is changing hands, this is really where the rubber meets the road, but for better or for worse, right? If I'm being paid and people are expecting an outcome, I know how to get to that outcome as quickly as possible through past experience, right? If they are open-minded to a longer phase to make something happen, then now let's talk about goats and let's talk about sustainability, all these different things, right? But if you want to see results in 3 to 5 years, I can almost guarantee that, right? Because I've done it before. I know how to do it, but it's going to cost more. And for people that have less patience, they better have more money. Right? That's what it comes down to, is that balance.
Well, it requires you to be more hands-on. And then also, if I'm like, hey, Clayton, I want 50% of my pasture to be prairie in 3 years. It's like, well, I'm going to have to go down a lot more conventional routes and like conventional things as to how to do that. But if I'm like, hey, I want 50% of my pasture in the prairie, however long it takes, get it done. Then now you're actually going to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to be able to make decisions about how to do this the right way, not necessarily like I need it now.
Right. You know? And that's actually a really, I will say that is a pro and a con, because what's interesting about it is you learn what's possible when you have a nearly unlimited budget, and no one has an unlimited budget. I'm not going to say that I don't care how wealthy someone is. You have to have the will and the ability to spend that money.
Well, but then also the sustainability of yearly inputs.
Exactly.
Like that's really where it comes down to.
But what my point was is that like when you do things at high level and you realize what's possible, when you can put a lot of resources into something in a shorter period of time, it takes more money, absolutely. But then you realize, oh man, now you're kind of gauging every project you look at through that lens, and that can become a problem. Because it's like not everybody has the ability to do that, or some people don't want to use herbicides, or some people don't want to, whatever it is that they have an idea, preconceived idea about it. But the frustration is to walk in and say, okay, look, I can deliver to you what you're asking me to in the time period, but you have to let me do it my way. Okay. Because I know what's going to get you there inside 3, 4, 5 years. Otherwise, if you're willing to wait 8, no worries, right?
Yeah.
We can mow the first or second year. We can not mow. You're going to get there, right? But if you want to be there in 3 to 5 years, there's a pretty predictable recipe on how to do that. And I know that because I've done it a lot, right? And so at the end of the day, that's an impediment to a degree sometimes, because you walk in and it's like, hey, look, I want to put my name on a really cool project for you and have success and be able to have something to hang my hat on, maybe even from a marketing standpoint. I love that part of it, right?
Yeah, right.
But if you're going to shackle me out of the gates and tell me like exactly how it needs to be done, we're probably not going to be a good fit for each other as consultants. Like, I'm super open to trying anything new as long as expectations are very, very tempered, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like there's a lot of ways to slice that bread, but you still got to use a knife.
Right? Yeah, right.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
And for me, when I think about, consulting possibly being in my future as a profession, like, I want to go out and get as many experiences with different places as I can, because if this place is my only experience as to how to go about doing stuff, like, hey, it's extremely limiting because I won't have as big of a data set, right? But this place is also super unique in the sense of we have a lot of financial room to work with. And it's like, I can go and waste, $1,000 or $2,000 on a seed mix that I tried to design myself. Sure, I paid for that seed, but I still, like, I can have that expectation of like, hey, it doesn't matter so much. I can go and do that without having to have that much pressure on it.
Right.
So I definitely, part of why I'm working with the farmer that I am is to get that perspective of, hey, he has to raise his 5 kids, he has to make that farm financially sustainable, versus here, we're like, yeah, we want to set it up eventually so that it pays for itself, but we can take time for that to happen. It doesn't have to happen now. And we can we can have a high input investment cost and do it right now to set it up for that in the future. It doesn't have to be done like slowly or very efficiently, I guess you could say.
Right.
So that's definitely just for me, one thing with consulting is trying to get out and do as many experiences as I can and talk to as many different people as I can and all that.
And work in a large, try to work in as many counties and different types of plant communities you can be exposed to. That's kind of the
like, I might know how to do it here in the Driftless, but I might not be able to do it in northern Wisconsin.
Absolutely. And that's right. That's exactly right. Is that you're shaped by your personal experiences and where you live and work and grow up, right? But I think that is, for me anyway, that's what worked really well on the consulting side, is to be able to have that bigger breadth of experiences working with different types of people on different types of landscapes throughout the upper Midwest. It's incredibly diverse. It's incredibly variable, the way it changes. And some of those nuances are really, really important when you're thinking about managing land.
How did you get into consulting? Like, what? Because you worked at the Peace Corps for a little while.
Well,
right?
That was
like,
right. Yeah, I mean, that was that was quite a while ago. I mean, I mean, that was 25 years ago, 26 years ago. I mean, so, but that was the path. I mean, I did agroforestry extension in Ghana, West Africa for a couple of years, and really got a love for working with people and land and creating that long-term land ethic concept and, trying to ingrain that in people. That was a hook for me. That really galvanized my career in terms of what I wanted to do, working with land and people together. Right.
Definitely.
And then I spent some time working in DNR. And then from there I went to work as a grassland ecologist for Pheasants Forever, basically putting prairie in the ground. I planted thousands of acres of grasslands, mainly in Wisconsin. I loved it. And I kind of liked the sales component of it too. The part where you're out there talking to people and educating people and selling something that you're really passionate about, that you really love doing. It makes it a lot easier, and that just kind of morphed into this idea that, hey, you know what? Number one, I mean, I the time that I went into private sector in my career, my boys were really young, but it was kind of like, okay, I don't know that I can sustain this.
Pheasants Forever doesn't have a huge paycheck,
No
does
doubt,
it?
right? I mean, dude, I was making like 35K a year
Yeah.
with 2 kids to feed, and that was only like 20 years ago. I mean, that that's not a lot,
Yeah.
you know. And at some point, it's like, oh man, my entire paycheck is just going to daycare here. What am I doing? I can't keep this up.
Yeah.
I loved the work. That was a launch pad, Pheasants Forever, and I'm still
Oh,
fully
great
involved.
experience. Yeah.
I've been heavily involved with the Southeastern Wisconsin chapter.
Yeah.
I've been an officer of that chapter. I run their fire program. I'm super passionate. I just went to Washington D.C. with the Fly-In Caucus group through Pheasants Forever a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and got to meet U.S. senators and their aides and congressmen and their aides. Be on the Capitol Hill for a couple of days. I mean, it was awesome. It was just a mind-blowing experience.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And Pheasants Forever as a national conservation group has the clout. They have the respect to make that happen, to be heard on Capitol Hill, to influence policy, particularly from a farm bill standpoint. That's what we were doing there.
Yeah.
Right? Is pushing for farm bill practice and full funding. But yeah,
I'd love to ask you more about that.
Oh yeah, we can get into that. But I mean, ultimately, just to get back to the original scope of the question is like from there, I was like, yeah, I want to work with a more diverse client set. I want to do some things that I don't really fit the job description within PF at that time. But gosh, I think that's a great model that Pheasants Forever has been highly successful on, is that people leave the organization and they promote from without, right? They talk it up. They support Pheasants Forever as volunteers now, probably for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And they put their money behind that too. That's one thing that most people inside the hunting and conservation community are pretty good at, is putting their dollars behind their ideas, right? And their passions. So I've stayed very close to the organization because their mission is really, really solid. From a grassland ecology standpoint, it's a ground up model, grassroots up, and there's a component of youth conservation and hunting education to it, but primarily it's that land ethic.
And Pheasants Forever, it's not like just focusing on pheasants. Like,
well, right,
we got to make that clear.
We get that
too.
A lot.
Yeah, it's like
every organization. I mean, you look at. I don't care if it's ducks, pheasants, grouse. Every one of these organizations, deer, they all have that figurehead species, and I think this is an interesting time, an interesting topic to be thinking about, because there's so much to unpack on it when you think about all these different conservation organizations that seem on the surface from the outside in, particularly, to be very focused on one species, right? To say, oh, well, you guys are all about ducks. You're all about deer, pheasants, or grouse, or elk, or whatever.
I will say the deer guys are pretty consolidated.
They can get pretty focused. Yeah, for sure. But the reality here is, like, let's take a step back and understand, like, we're all kind of doing some of the same things. We've got a lot of the same thought process.
Focus the especially like the financial side of things. If we kind of focused our efforts into the same kind of stuff, we'd get a lot more.
Well, the timeliness of this that's interesting right now is that our Pheasants Forever chapter, Southeastern Wisconsin chapter, kind of based in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, right? Yeah. Has traditionally, and this is an organization that's been around since the early to mid 80s, right? Our chapter, and we're not the only one that's done this. This is not a unique model, but we have funded habitat projects all over the state, and even some out of state, right? There's nothing in the bylaws that says we can't do that. If we see a really solid project in the driftless, we want to write a check for a few $1,000 onto that, we can do that. And we do that, right? Yeah. And one of the things that we're awfully proud about within our chapter is that we fund a lot of private lands projects. Now, we vet those projects really, really heavily, finding the right landowner, the right piece of land, knowing what they're doing, making sure they're bought into maintaining it and stewarding that project well. But if we write a landowner a check for $5,000 or $10,000, there's not any legal strings to that, right? We can ask them to sign a landowner agreement saying they're not going to tear that cover up or whatever. There's no legal standing to that. They can really do whatever they want, as they should be able to. It's their land, they own it, right? Yep. But a lot of the Pheasants Forever chapter folks, and this is, again, not even unique to Pheasants Forever, a lot of these conservation organizations don't want to put money into private land management unless there's public land hunting access available to it.
Yeah.
That's
is
really incredibly myopic right now. Yeah. And it's a little bit dangerous. It's not a sustainable idea, particularly when you think about our state that we live in is what, 80+% private owned land throughout the state, right?
Yep.
And you're going to all of a sudden just exclude 80% of the landscape from habitat
you're not really
work.
moving the needle on
Oh
that
my
stuff.
gosh.
Yeah.
Not at all.
You can't, like,
that's right.
From the landowner's perspective, they could do a lot for habitat if you gave them like a $10,000 check. But then as soon as you're like, okay, but you have to let other people hunt here, they're like,
yeah,
no,
that's a deal breaker.
I'm not doing that.
My God, that's a deal breaker for 99.9% of landowners, as it should be. You know, why do you own land?
Yeah.
You want to go hunt public land, hunt it. It's awesome. I hunt plenty of public land all over the country, right? But I also fully understand the desire to own your own land, control your own world. Right? I get that.
I want to share it with as many people as I can.
Yeah.
Like, I want to share hunting this place with as many of my friends
by invitation.
And stuff. But yeah, it's like, it's not like I'm like sitting here and I'm going, oh my gosh, I want to keep this place myself. I want it to be mine.
Right.
It's like, no, I want to share it, but also I don't just want to have a bunch of random people walking all over it, you know?
Sure.
And sure, you can set up a system to vet it where you're like, hey, I'm just going to let 8 people hunt it. And it's these 8 people. And that's like my public access.
Right.
And I think that's like forest crop law. There's something built into that, or at least there was at some point.
Well, and I'll say too, the other part of it that I get a little bit jaded on right now, and I think all these things are revolutions. They go in circles, right? Our state DNR right now is really struggling with public land management. Let's be honest, right? You drive
very
around.
Understandable.
You drive around, and there's a reason. There's partly a reason. Like I don't pretend to know all the inner workings, right? But I will tell you, and then there's a lot to it, right? This is a large agency with a lot of moving parts. They have a lot of resources. They also have a lot of resource limitations, right? The resources are not always allocated precisely where they need to be to manage public land well.
Yeah.
And particularly where I live in the southeastern and south central part of the state, where I recreate and hunt and fish and hike, you look at public land, and even in my short career that a couple of decades in this business or more.
Couple of decades, very short.
It is short.
Compared to a lot of people,
Well, you think about just the scale of grassland ecology, right? These are communities that are here for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? If we steward them properly. But I've seen a decline. I think most people would agree. You drive around and it's like, oh my God, the invasive plants, the DNR just doesn't have the ability they did even 10 or 15 years ago to manage public land well across the board. But yet we keep giving them more. We keep, as conservation organizations, we continue. This is the one thing that I, kind of have a little bit of saltiness over. It's like, why am I going to go out and bust my hump to fundraise as a conservation group to give that money to the DNR for them to buy a piece of land, steward it probably pretty well for the first 3 or 4 or 5 years. And then there's a new shiny object. And pretty soon the check that we give them is just there to maintain parking lots and gates and signage. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we want to do as a chapter. I don't think that's what we want to do as an organization or as a community at large of conservationists, right? So it does spur on a lot. They need help. They need volunteers. 100% love that. We do plenty of that. We volunteer. You look at all these groups that are doing really, really good work, helping the department and other agencies manage public land. I am all for that, right? But right now, we are in this downward cycle where, for whatever reason, politically and other factors, have drawn resources away from those wildlife technicians and wildlife managers, fisheries techs, fisheries managers that are doing good work out there. They're doing the best they can. And every year, George, they're asked to do more with less. And that is an empirical fact. And it frustrates the heck out of me. And I don't think the answer is us just giving them more money.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's something's broken there.
Writing a check is about, like, it makes you feel better about yourself and all that, but it is kind of like the least helpful way that you can help. Like, it does help.
It's short term though.
But it's
like give a man a fish versus teach him to fish.
Yeah,
right?
like volunteering would be a lot more helpful. But then there's not much you can necessarily do to fix the system, but there are other ways that you could go about fixing things. But it is a very difficult thing to.
So my point of that is that again when we find private landowners that are really passionate, that we know are going to be there for a long time, they're in it for the long haul. They're doing things for the right reasons. We know that. We want to support them.
Yeah.
And I try to go to other organizations and other chapters of Pheasants Forever and say, hey, look, guys, I know that you spend most of your habitat allocation dollars to the DNR, but why not try something different? Maybe put 10 or 20% of your habitat revenue every year into private lands. If you can't find those landowners, reach out to your Pheasants Forever Farm Bill biologists and your state coordinators and your chapter leaders in the state that have connections with private landowners, right? Trust that process and let it play out and give it a try. And you might be surprised. Those are the people, by the way, that for us turn into long-term donors and sponsors of our events. They host events like Learn to Hunt or youth hunt events on their lands. They host prairie seed collection events. They get really into it. This is that full circle idea that we're really trying to promote and push right now.
Like the building relationship side of things is really what you're saying.
Absolutely. It starts by cutting them a check, giving them some financial assistance to do the right thing, right? That's where it has to start.
Well, and build a trust with it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes time to do that. There's no doubt. And it's a daunting task, and but it is the long road. It's the sustainable path forward. And we have to think about that, particularly from a grasslands management standpoint. That resource is really imperiled right now. And we're losing it more and more and more. And we need more fire in the landscape, 100%. And I should put a plug out to Wisconsin Prescribed Fire Council. If any of those folks are listening, amazing group of people. In the last 5 to 10 years, that organization has gone into the stratosphere with what they are doing, how they're influencing fire in the landscape, training other people, enabling other people to get good, safe fire on the ground. We need more of that all the time, and it's great. And those people are all volunteers doing that work. They've evolved to the point where they have paid staff too, which is amazing to see. But again, I was part of that fire council as an officer for 15, 16 years. I love that group. I'm still, on the fringes of it right now. But at the end of the day, that's what it takes. Those grassroots movements of people that are passionate, that are putting their time and their dollars, if they can, behind those groups and those missions.
No, I would agree. I'm just curious, is there a timeline that you have at all for when you need to get out of here?
What time is it right now? 12:30?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a call at 3:00 I was supposed to jump on. So I'm good.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's keep going. I love it.
We already had an hour blow by.
Oh, really?
That. Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it.
No,
I imagine. Do you edit these at all, or you just put this out raw?
The middle sections, I pretty much edit the beginning to make sure that it flows into the conversation nicely, and then the end so that there's not like a weird 10-second, drop off of where I'm turning everything off, and then But otherwise, I don't really edit.
Well, you tell me, man. I mean,
no,
this is your deal. Yeah.
I'm good to go. I just wanted to make sure I'm being respectful.
You got me all caffeinated here, so I'm like, I'm just
dude. I kind of need it. Like it. I don't need it. It helps me concentrate. Like it's.
Oh, coffee is good.
It's yeah. So tell me what you were doing with the farm bill.
Oh yeah. So in DC, so this isn't anything new. Pheasants Forever, like many other conservation groups, have really hitched their wagon quite heavily to USDA farm bill practices like CRP. That's the one that most people are most familiar with. Conservation Reserve Program. Essentially paying farmers a subsidy to take particularly low production agricultural tillable land.
Like the wetland areas that we were talking where it's like maybe it shouldn't necessarily be farmed.
Take that out of production, farm the best, conserve the rest. That concept is really an underlying idea with Farm Bill, with these practices. And there's a lot of other USDA Farm Bill practices that help people with woodland management or wetland restoration, right? It's not just CRP that's doing predominantly upland tillable ag land conversion to conservation cover. There's a lot more to it than that. But the Farm Bill is a really, really complex piece of legislation.
Oh, yeah.
And these conservation programs are just one small little facet of it too, right? So what we're out there doing is just, again, meeting with congressmen and senators and their aides predominantly, and helping inform them. Sometimes those people in DC are pretty detached from these issues. They understand the moving parts at a high level.
It's hard for them to be attached to it.
Correct. And so they need to create some attachment. That's what we're doing is we're going out there and telling stories about how do Farm Bill practices affect us, right? as voters, as
Yeah.
consumers, as conservationists and hunters, how do these acres that are on the landscape affect our lives, affect our economies, affect our water quality, all
Yeah.
these things, right, that are tied into conservation programs. That's what we're talking to people about, trying to connect them with actual humans that are being influenced
Yeah,
every
like
day by these
real world
programs.
examples of what's
Absolutely.
happening. And
But it was also just really eye-opening to see the process, to peel back the
yeah,
curtain,
right.
walk those
You got to
corridors.
talk with all the
Oh
bureaucrats,
man,
man.
it's incredible. It really is. I mean, like to get 15 or 20 minutes of a senator's time, or
Yeah.
even their like high level LAs or legislative aides to sit
Yeah.
down with them and talk farm bill, talk about prescribed fire and grassland ecology and pheasant hunting. Something you got to connect with them on a level that they can appreciate and say, oh yeah, I went out pheasant hunting this one time and it was an amazing experience. Okay, well, let's talk about that for a couple minutes, right?
Yeah.
But if you didn't have the grassland and you didn't have the CRP to build the grassland, you wouldn't have the pheasants, right? So let's help them connect those dots, and that's what we are doing. Pheasants Forever has an incredible um, legislative action team
Yeah.
that is really connected in DC. They know how to make things happen, get meetings with people, get
That's
FaceTime.
good.
And that's where the things happen.
Yeah.
Right. That's those human connections. And people remember that, I think, much more so than reading a letter or an email or listening to a phone message.
And it is really cool, just the conservation movement and the hunting movement, and the environmentalist movement. I I tend to draw a lot of negative, or I talk about a lot of negative things with those movements. But I will say one of the really cool things. There's lots of cool things about them. One of the really cool things is it does exercise what is supposed to be the democratic side of our government in the best way that any other movements do.
Right.
Like when we were fighting public lands and stuff, it was super cool to see all of those people like calling their, like, whether or not which side you were on with that debate, calling their senators and calling their congressmen to say no to it. Like, just seeing that piece of, wow, you're telling me US citizens actually use their power in this democratic system to influence what their congressmen and senators did?
Right.
Like, just step back from where your stance was.
It's
That's a
awe-inspiring.
cool thing.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, the system actually worked.
Right.
It did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
People called their congressmen and senators and told them to say no to the bill, and they said no to it.
Yeah.
Like, sure, we got by with the skin of our
That's
teeth,
inspiring.
but like, it was super cool.
Right.
And you see that a lot with that stuff, is like within like conservation and hunting and environmentalism, is you see a lot of people actually doing those movements. And sometimes you do have, a big push like that last year with the public lands attack, but then, stuff slides by with like the boundary waters, because people focused their attention on that one and they thought, okay, we're done, and didn't continue to push. It's like, no, you have to keep going. But it was just cool to actually see that.
Well, it doesn't always result. I mean, the boundary waters thing actually had a pretty incredible impact on the social media side. There was a big movement. There was a lot of people involved with that, and it still didn't go the way that group thought it was going to go. Right. So it doesn't always work out.
Was all over it, just like they were.
It doesn't always work out, but you know what? You have to believe in the process. You have to become involved in it.
Yeah.
I am a big supporter of that idea, is that, you to make government work is work. You have to become engaged with it, with the process. Yeah. Voting is great, right?
And you have to let them, like, if you don't let your congressmen and senators know, hey, you're supposed to represent me and do stuff, they will just walk all over you, and they will not give a crap about you because you're not showing them that they should.
It's really easy to become disenfranchised in the program,
and
but you got to stay on it.
And
yeah,
sure, you can ask yourself, what's the main impact of just me doing it? Well, directly, not much, but indirectly, a lot. Because then now, if you talk to your neighbor about like, hey, yeah, I called my senator the other day, and sure, they didn't pick up, but I left a voicemail. It's like, well, now they might do that, because then they realize, oh, well, I could do that.
Right.
And then maybe your kids do it, and maybe your uncle does it or whatever. And it's like, there's a cascading effect there of people starting to realize that they can go and do that, have that influence. And then that's how you actually get the system to work. So the concept of, oh, I'm not really going to do much myself, you're right, you won't. But indirectly, you'll do a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking about, generationally, and thinking about that from a age and demographic standpoint, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
generationally, your generation has a reputation, which I think is unfounded, by the way, that you have this apathetic, mindset,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when it comes to government. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's ebbs and flows when you look at the statistics that come out about young people that vote,
Yeah.
especially in national elections. But getting involved to the level that you're talking about, George,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a perception that that's pretty rare,
Yeah.
of people of your age that are willing to call their senator or write a letter,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think you need to encourage your listeners to continue to do that. Maybe even think about having a politician on
Right.
your podcast to give their perspective of it,
Mm-hmm.
and ask them that direct question while they're being recorded to say, how does it affect your world if you get a phone call or a personal visit versus just reading an email form letter that somebody wrote?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how does that influence you? Most people that I've heard answer that question honestly would say significantly. Right?
Yeah. Well,
That's
hearing
they,
from
they actually tally that.
Yeah.
They have people that actually keep track of those calls, and they're weighted, right?
Mm-hmm.
A call or a personal visit is weighted more heavily than a letter.
Well, and especially it's like you think about all these different things that they're trying to do and trying to understand when they're in there, like everything that they're voting on.
Yeah.
It's huge and it's enormous. And each congressman might have, maybe they care more about like Medicaid or something like that. So that's the piece of the bill that they're focusing on. And the farm bill side of things, they might read into it a little bit, but they're really not going to pay that much attention to it.
Yeah.
And then if they get a whole bunch of people calling and saying like, hey, this part of the bill is super stupid, don't do it, they'll be like, oh, well, yeah, it's probably stupid and I probably shouldn't vote for it,
Right.
Because they just don't have the time to be able to focus on all those every single aspect of every single thing.
Right.
So you actually calling them and having that influence it can be very major. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as like my generation goes, it's definitely interesting. There are people that I've met who get pretty worked up over it and they do like have a severe passion for it, and they really want to be an engaged citizen or a responsible citizen. And then there certainly are people that are like, it kind of just seems super messed up and like a broken system, and I don't want to waste my time. And I'm like, I totally get that.
Yeah.
But you should really try to be like you don't have to let it consume you, because that's the thing is they see so many examples of people in their lives that have been just consumed with politics and runs their personality and runs like the family Thanksgiving discussions, it doesn't have to be that, but you should be responsibly educated,
Right. At least be aware of the issues and make a concerted effort to get facts, right? Not opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's important too. Just, and you have a voice, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you think about what you're doing. I mean, this whole concept of being a social media influencer, right?
Yeah, I know I'd knack on it so much, but that's what I'm trying to do.
I get it. You're aspirational, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, you do have influence that way, right? You're heard, and maybe it's only a few hundred people a year listen to it right now, right? But that's the way all of these things started.
Right.
Everyone has humble beginnings. No one goes out as an influencer and has 100,000 followers in the first.
Just the lucky ones.
Right. Well, mostly those are bought and paid for, probably, right?
Probably.
But at the end of the day, I think it's important to encourage young people to become, part of that process.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and vote however you want, right? Just vote.
Yeah.
Just become aware, make an effort to become educated on the issues that matter to you, particularly. Try not to vote just on those issues if you can. That's definitely a problem. But, at least be educated about the issues you're passionate about.
Yeah, and it's like, sure, you might be super into the environmentalist movement and you hate mining. So you're going to go up to like the mine that's happening up in the Porcupine Mountains right now and you're going to vote no against it, right?
Right.
Like, sure, totally fine. But then you also have to understand what is the economic side of that thing. Like, sure, it's a Canadian company, but who are they employing? If they're employing people from, hundreds of miles away, yeah, absolutely say no to it. But if they're employing people from that local area, you realize what a mine in that area could do for the small little town in the upper peninsula of Michigan?
Yeah.
Like, economically that could save that town if it's dying.
We're delving into a whole other world here.
No, but
the NIMBY stuff.
All I'm trying to say is like,
yeah,
you have to be able to look at things from the whole picture. Don't just look at that mine that's going up and being like, well, it's going to destroy the ecology of that area. Like, yeah, it might, but there's a huge human side of this thing too that matters. Right. This isn't just something that's like, oh, well, humans are super destructive and we're selfish.
Well, and that's
creatures,
what
and it's like,
honestly,
it matters that we are in a healthy position.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. You drive around, and it doesn't. This is not unique to the driftless. Like anywhere in the world where they're starting to talk about a wind farm, a solar farm, a high tension, transmission lines, data centers. Nobody,
are you up to date on the 7?
To a degree, okay. But the data center thing is a bigger issue for us. Yeah. Right. Because we've got more open, flat agricultural land in the southeastern corner, south central part of the state, and water. Yeah. That's what they're looking for, right? Ag land that they can convert cheaply, and having local politicians support it because they want the tax revenue and having water. But that's just one example. These energy corridors that move through here, my God, look at the electricity that we're bathing ourselves in here right now, right?
I'm sorry, I have to have the lighting.
Of course, yeah, I get it. But at the end of the day, it's like, we're all consumers of these things: data, electricity, right? Water, all the things that nobody wants to see it, and I get that. And if you're talking, it's a very sensitive situation. You're putting a major industrial man-made thing in the middle of this supposedly perceptually pristine, wilderness area,
or at least what potentially could be that.
People don't like it. Yeah. And I'll, I mean, it's like, you put a road in your backyard, but okay, are you not going to drive your car in the road anymore? Are you not going to use fossil fuels? Are you, I mean, it's like ultimately everybody doesn't like this stuff when they have to look at it, but they love having it. We need it. Yeah. No one wants to live without electricity and water, and nobody wants to live without data these days. These data centers, I mean, the people that push back on these things, it's like, okay, are you like swearing off social media now? Yeah. Are you not going to use AI the rest of your life? Good luck.
It is a good luck thing. For me, it is definitely like, I'm not for like 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 data centers going up in Wisconsin. Maybe like 1 or 2 is pretty reasonable. Well, like maybe that's fine for the water situation and the energy usage and all that. And sure, I wouldn't want to live in those towns, but maybe that is kind of what needs to happen. I'm not necessarily for it. I would say, like, if I'm going to take a stance on it, I am against it. I try to not use AI as much as I can, but it is, like you're saying, like, it's hard. Like, anytime you look something up on Google, it's just automatically Gemini's working, Yeah. When I go to edit the podcast, there's a lot of things, like, I've tried to shut it off as much as I can, but it just does a lot of AI things automatically, you know? So I'm trying to minimize my usage of it. It can be an incredible tool, and I want to utilize that tool. Like we were saying earlier, like, there are just some things that are nice tools to have. There are times to use it, and there are times to not use it.
Right.
So am I like 100% against AI? No. But if I could flip a switch and just say no AI at all, I'd probably flip that switch.
That's just not realistic, though.
It's not realistic.
It's not going anywhere.
If you were to ask me for a perfect world, like,
I know
that because not necessarily because I don't see the value in it. I just know we're not going to use it for that value.
Here's my perception of it, George. I think, number one, these things are not always built in the smartest places. There's no doubt, no argument about it, right? They can be built more sustainably. We can take some of the revenue. If we do this intelligently, we can take some of the revenue that comes out of these and put it back into conservation, particularly in the same watershed, the same land footprint where these things are being built. Yeah. Do you see that being done very often? Not too much.
And that's the thing. Not is like, too much. Sure, that stuff's totally possible, but is it going to happen? Right. Probably not.
Because the municipalities where these things are built, they want to build roads and bridges. They want civil projects. They want parks. They want people to be able to enjoy it. Well, okay, but what about offsetting the carbon footprint or offsetting the ecological footprint that a building of that size using that much resources is requiring, right? Are we thinking about that part of it, right? And more often than not, the answer is no. They're not looking at it that way. They're doing the minimal amount they need to do. that the regulators tell them they need to protect from an erosion control standpoint during construction. But why can't
Yeah.
we legislate in and say, okay, you're going to build a data center? Okay, let's talk about it. But let's also talk about the conservation footprint that we're going to build in association with that building,
Yeah.
with that infrastructure. We have the technology. We know we have the intelligence. We have the capacity to do all of these things if we have the political will. And that's where, back to your point about the population being educated and engaged.
Yeah.
If the community members show up and tell their leaders that, hey, okay, let's be reasonable. These darn things have to go somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that. No one's going to start living without cell phones and AI and Facebook and Instagram, right? It's not going anywhere. But is there an intelligent way to build these into our worlds where the footprint is either offset or it's actually better? It could be better. There's so much money that's changing hands here. If you took 2% of it, 1% of it, I don't know, 0.5%, and you put it back into conservation right there, it's doable.
Well,
right?
and
It's
then
just not being done.
you can get into like, okay, here we can regulate things so it's done in a sustainable and well managed system. Like, you know, forestry is the main example of tree harvests and stuff. Like, I would rather, more logging happen here in Wisconsin than I would over in like the Amazon rainforest, where sure there might be some regulations on it, but it's most likely not being done in an extremely sustainable manner. I don't really know. I'm not up to date as to how it's happening, but I know it can be done in a good manner here in Wisconsin. So I want as much of my timber coming from Wisconsin as I can because I know how it's being controlled and managed, So I would rather keep that impact where I know it's sustainable versus out of sight, out of mind. It's not happening here. I'm keeping this place cool and friendly to nature.
Well, let me give you an example. And I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing like a lot of new timber, right?
Yeah, right.
Are you and your family willing to pay 50% more for sustainably harvested and grown Wisconsin timber to build a home than stuff that's coming from Oregon or maybe even out of the country?
Yeah.
That's the tough one.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Right? Like, are we really willing to put our money where our mouths are about that?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to say that we're for sustainable forestry, man. I mean, who's not?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Who's going to say, oh, I'm against that? Right?
Right.
But when you open up your wallet and realize, okay, this is where it really matters.
Well, that's where it matters. But I'm mostly just saying from a regulator standpoint of just, people over in California saying no to logging. It's like, okay, but you know that you can regulate the logging in California to do it in a sustainable manner. Like, you shouldn't be saying no to logging.
Yeah.
Versus
that's
shipping
an
off to
extremist
somewhere else.
view. There's no doubt.
But that's what's happening. Like within the environmentalist movement, that's what's happening. Not just with logging, with mining, and with all these other things.
I would counter that, George, and I would say that I'm not going to argue that that's not happening. I think, though, that is what gets the media. It's what gets the headlines.
That's true.
It's what gets the attention because it's it's sensationalized and it's like it's attention grabbing, right? I think that there's plenty of grassroots movements and conservation happening out there by being led by really reasonable, pragmatic people. Okay. But they're not getting the press because it's not as attention grabbing.
Yeah.
It doesn't sell headlines.
That's fair.
It doesn't get likes and follows, right? I just think it's human nature to a degree. And it's the double-edged sword of right now, real-time 24-hour news cycles and social media, is that what we see is not always the whole picture. It may not be a misrepresentation if it's being accurately portrayed. It may be 100% spot on, but it's only one small facet of the bigger piece of the puzzle. And the full story is not always being told, and I think that's very true in politics. It's true with any of these extremist movements. They're the ones who get the headlines one way or the other. What's happening in the middle, and maybe even in the middle of the country where we live, right?
Yeah.
That's it, because that's what's being fed by people that are informed, and hopefully they start getting more and more media coverage and they get the attention. That's what we're after.
Yeah, for sure. No, I would agree. There is like you do have to play it a little bit in your mind of just like, okay, how much of what I'm seeing is just what they want to show me, and how much of it is real, and what's actually happening. I would say that's definitely fair, and I have to play that in my own mind too, because I don't want to just be saying all the bad things that are happening. Like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast,
it's easier to find the bad stuff.
It is easier to find the bad stuff and the like focus in on that and only talk about that. But I still want to be offering solutions at the same time.
Well, let's end it this way, George. Like I think what we do as conservationists is that we are basically eternal optimists, right? We have to be.
Yeah.
We have faith in a positive outcome, and I think that you got to keep that faith in this, because there's so many things that can draw you down, and it's just so much gloom and doom out there.
Well,
oh my,
like it's been a while since I read it, but when I read a Sand County Almanac, I remember there was kind of just like a dark cloud over the style of how it was written and all that, and people kind of take that and they interpret it into this way of, well, Leopold thinks that like our impact is super bad and all that, and we need to start to have a movement towards like reducing our impact because our impact's bad. It's like you have to understand the place that Leopold was in Wisconsin when he was writing that.
Yeah,
like it was a very terrible time for the natural resources within Wisconsin. Like so many species were extirpated or actively being extirpated from the state.
At the brink of extinction.
Yeah, including like white-tailed deer, pretty much gone, you know? So like elk were gone, wolves were gone, black bears were nearly gone, mountain lions, I think like the last mountain lion was shot while he was alive. Like deer were pretty much gone. Turkeys are probably pretty much gone. So you have to understand, like, he needed to have that tone to kind of knock people into this concept of like, hey,
man of his times.
We need to start to restore this stuff. But it doesn't mean that we're bad. It doesn't mean we need to like stop having an impact, and we need to stop like living in communion with the land and being a part of the land.
I think there's also danger in evangelizing the messages that come out of Leopold. I think that there's a lot of groups that have done that. And I think, again, it gets people to write checks sometimes. But at the end of the day, he was a human being. He was a man of his time, and he was a man of his own observations and experiences, just like we are too. And he had some great things to say. But should we, evangelize all of his words to the point that everything he said was to be taken literally? I mean, there's like a religious argument and philosophical argument to that too, right? The sense that like, okay, as human beings, what our brains like to do is pick out the things that reinforce what we already believe, and it's harder to conceptualize the things that we're not quite that comfortable with and make us squirm a little bit, right? But you're right. I mean, when he wrote those words, there were some serious, challenges on the landscape. That would,
and it kind of need to be a little shock.
Some of those are still around, and some of those have been mitigated really well, right? So, he had a positive impact overall for most people. But
definitely no, and I, part of me is also like, it's a great way to get people to start to have a passion for conservation is to look at Leopold and look at his writings and get them to read it. But also there's a lot more relevant things that people could be reading and looking into and all that, that they could be devoting their time into to actually understand what are the problems that are happening right now that we need to be worrying about. And even like you can read stuff from 40, 50 years ago that are still relevant, and there's just a lot more like, we just focus in on the people of the past too much within conservation. I feel like Leopold, and even you get some people that reach back to like Henry Thoreau and stuff. And it's like, that's all cool to understand where they were coming from, but you do need to adapt your mindset into what's happening
100%,
now.
100%.
And part of it is also, there's just so many different people that you can listen to. Right now, because podcast mics are like $200 a piece and super cheap for people to buy.
But George, this was really fun to sit down and talk, especially like I number one, like I love to deer hunt. You're super passionate deer hunter. And you got this amazing piece of land to work on and hunt on. But I appreciate you, talking more than just deer.
Thank you.
what you do in your podcast at large,
Yeah.
but even today, right? I mean, talking about essentially biodiversity. That really that's like the first time I think I've uttered the term today. I should have used it earlier, but ultimately it's like that's what this is really coming down to.
Yep.
All these conservation groups that get, really hyper focused on one species, we need to draw it back. We need to come together as organizations. We need to cross those boundaries, break down the barriers that exist between those organizations, and understand what we're all trying to do is really about biodiversity, right? It's preserving it, it's enhancing it, and creating more on every level possible and every option possible. And we shouldn't be excluding any group or any, idea if we think that there's a chance it's going to enhance biodiversity. That's really the undertone of all of it. It's what drives everything that we're doing. To put one word to it, right? All the way down from the bugs and the microorganisms in the soil, all the way up to charismatic megafauna that we all love, right? That we identify with. So it's everything. It takes a village, right? Wow. It's kind of clichéic, but I mean that's really what it comes down to. And yeah, I think it's great what you're doing. Honestly, you're giving it a voice.
Yeah,
and you're not walking into this with any
people need to listen to it more, but
yeah.
So there's a voice behind it.
Yeah.
No.
So awesome.
No, definitely. Thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, this has been a blast as usual.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode. Please be sure to share this with somebody if you enjoyed it. It's the only way content creators ever grow. It's the only way I'm going to grow. So please just hit the share button, pick one person in your contact list, send it to them. Also, please be sure to go and check out our sponsor, Just Landed Lanyards, over on Instagram. They make all sorts of lanyards, duck lanyards, gun slings, binocular slings, all that kind of stuff. It's handmade, really good, high quality stuff. So go check them out on Instagram, follow them, and then message them what you want, and they'll get you hooked up. Thank you guys again for listening to today's episode.